Now, I thought a lot this week we've been talking about different images of God and Jesus, how he describes himself. And this week, Jesus, in our passage read by Joanne this morning, talks about being the shepherd, the good shepherd, that the sheep know my voice and they come when I call. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a city girl. I was born and raised in Toronto, and the only time I saw sheep was the few times during my childhood that we went on our school trip to the Royal Ontario Fair, the Royal Fair in Toronto. And I was just mesmerized by the sheep and loved them. And of course, we identify so much of our faith with that sense, that pastoral scene of shepherd and sheep. Now, anyone here, I know there are lots of folk who have grown up around farms or on farms. Can you share any of your knowledge or wisdom to me about sheep? Because I'm a city girl. I missed out on that education. Anyone, except for the Royal Winter Fair, that's the only place I went. Anybody know much about sheep? No? We're all kind of in the same boat? All right. They're very sweet, Andrea said. I noticed the other day that online there was a video going around about a new yoga class, and they do yoga with baby goats. And when you're doing the different poses, the goats like nibble on your legging or your shoelace, or they hop on your back when you're doing the downward dog, and it's like this craze all of a sudden, but that's goats. We're talking sheep today. Well, that's right. We've enjoyed what the sheep give us in terms of wool and sweaters and warm mittens and scarves and prayer shawls and prayer blankets. Yeah. Well, when my daughter Amanda and I were walking the Camino, of course, we were following various trails, and we go from town to town, and sometimes we were in the middle of fields, and sometimes we were walking through a busy town, and other times we were literally what felt like walking through barnyards. We were walking through barnyards. The path took us through little villages, and they shared paths and cobblestoned ways, and many of their herds would walk on those same paths to get back to their barn at night or out to a different pasture. And I don't know whether I told you already, but one day we were walking along, and my daughter and I just about got bowled over by cattle. I mean, we were walking along this path, and in certain parts of the pathway, because it's the Camino and it's been tramped on for literally over 1,000 years, it's been pretty worn down. So where you're walking on the path, the actual ground level might be up here. And so you're walking down this sort of a tunnel almost, and you look up and there might be a cow looking down at you or something. Well, this one particular time, the walls weren't that high, but probably up about this height. And all of a sudden we came around a corner, and literally, like it would be like on this walkway, there must have been 30 cattle, like, this tall and about that wide with horns that went beyond. And we're kind of like, like we were the only ones. And they were just, they weren't stampeding, they were just trotting along. And we're like, where is the farmer? Where are the people that are supposed to be? Who lets cattle just go to get to higher ground? Like, let's get out of here. And it was really scary. And there was this one huge bull that was going along, and I guess he had an itch on his horn because he was just kind of plowing his horn through the ground, and I'm kind of standing like this thinking, he's gonna come right for me here. So my daughter and I managed to get out of the way, and this herd went by, and then lo and behold, behind came trotting this little dog and the farmer on like a little moped, just waving, hi. And we're like, are you kidding? Like, what's going on? But I learned one difference between cows and sheep is that cows apparently have to be prod from behind, but sheep like to be led. So that wouldn't have happened if there'd been a shepherd around, because the sheep won't go unless they're led by the shepherd. Now, Ken, I don't know if you have handy a little video here, but I just thought you might enjoy seeing this. This is a demonstration of how sheep work in terms of being led.
Nelson here. Nelson, come here. Here. Nelson, come here.
There we go. I can't but think of my own little dog at home, because if my little dog was out there, that's exactly what she'd be doing. She'd be running in circles. But sheep like to be led. Didn't matter that this screwy little dog was running in circles, they were just following. That's where they were to go. And I thought, sometimes as a human race, I think sometimes we're misled. As a people, I think we are a lot like sheep. We kind of like to be led most of the time. And sometimes the folk that we choose to be our leaders perhaps aren't the best. And I didn't say anything. I didn't mention any names or countries or anything. But as sheep, we do like to be led. And our God gives us an image of God's self as our shepherd, the one that we should follow. And I thought, we live in a world today where there are many distractions, and there are many who might present themselves as being leaders, but they're not necessarily folk that we would wish to follow. And I think of our young people. So often we always talk about, that child just got in with the wrong crowd. I can remember my older son, for the umpteenth time being sent to the principal's office, and I'd get called in, and I'd say, David, again? Like what? What's going on? And 9 times out of 10 he says, well, so-and-so, said that we should do this. Or so-and-so said it would be a good idea to do, and I was just going along with him. And I'm like, David, you have to think for yourself. You just can't follow just anyone and their ideas, like lighting matches in the backfield of the schoolyard. Not a good idea. So we live in a culture where there are lots of things put out there in front of us that are trying to lead us. Now, some of our old religious terms, lead us astray, that language that we're familiar with. But as a people, we like to be led. And so it's that much important, I think, that we choose the leaders to lead us. And I think this is a passage that reminds us very clearly that God wishes to be our leader. It is God who wishes to make the way for us. And there is comfort in having that kind of leadership in our life. I know when Amanda and I were on the Camino, we relied heavily on all the signposts, all the little painted arrows or the shells that were impressed in the cement on the walks, or even sometimes almost like a brass plate that was placed in the cobblestone to show us the sign of where we were to go. We were led through the Camino. And there's so many ways in our lives in which we can open ourselves to being led. And sometimes it's a matter of listening more. And in our passage this morning, we heard about the shepherd that said, my sheep know my voice. And so it's important that we open ourselves up to listening to that direction and to that voice. And I thought too, something about being led and recognizing that God is our shepherd, the good shepherd. There are all kinds of different shepherds. There might be the kind of shepherd that's just there for the hourly wage, and when that clock stops, off they go. They don't really care so much about what happens when they're no longer on shift. And our good shepherd is the shepherd that says, no, I am with you always. There's never a time when I'm off duty. And when I thought more about the image of the good shepherd, I was trying to think, well, what's a modern day good shepherd? Can you think of someone that would come to your mind? Who would you think of as a modern day shepherd? I was trying to think of that. It was a bit of a struggle. A teacher. Often a teacher in front of a classroom is in a position of leading and influencing and teaching. Yes? Sorry? The Pope? Yeah. Particularly the Pope Francis, a good shepherd, I would say. A lot of the things. Or choir leader. You're leading the sheep in their psalms and singing. Yeah. And our ministers, leaders. I was also thinking within our culture, if you think of a shepherd as one who protects and looks out for the sheep, I thought of our EMS personnel. Our paramedics, our firefighters, our police officers, called to serve and protect. And you could say a shepherd. Yeah, that's kind of the shepherd. But again, I mean, I hate to say this because I know actually a colleague of mine, and I'm going to mention Anne in our prayers this morning. A colleague's wife here in Guelph was knocked over on her bike while cycling this week and hit by a car. Now she's recovering at home, but she was amazed that in the particular area of Guelph where the accident happened, there were all these off-duty nurses, doctors, police, EMS, and they all pulled over or ran out of their houses with their little bags, and they were with her immediately, giving her the care that she needed. So that was probably vital to her doing as well as she's doing. So there's that sense of, a modern day shepherd, of that protection and care that we rely on. And I thought something about God with the Good Shepherd is this sense that there's no off-duty for our Good Shepherd, for a God who promises to be with us always. There's no sense of being off-duty or not being available to us. So I thought, in terms of sheep, they love to be led. So in that, I thought there's a sense of belonging. There's a sense in which you're a part of a flock. And I learned this about sheep, that in some countries, for instance, that still have their sheep out grazing or what have you, actually they'll gather around a watering hole or a place where the shepherds gather to give them water from a well. And so shepherds can all kind of mingle, and then all the sheep kind of get all mixed in together, and you think, oh my gosh, how are they going to be able to get all these sheep out to where they're supposed to the right shepherd and everything? But the sheep know the call of their shepherd. And so all the shepherd has to do is start walking away and whistle or click or whatever that signal is, and the sheep of that shepherd will go and follow that shepherd. They know the voice. There's a sense of relationship that's so intimate that even in a crowd like that, the sheep can hear their shepherd calling, and they'll follow to safety or to where they have to be protected for the night. So there's all these images about sheep and shepherd, and you think, well, okay, we live in Guelph, okay? The only sheep I ever see are the lamb chops in the frozen food section. I'm just saying, what is that, this image of sheep, the good shepherd, what does that mean for us? But as I said at the beginning, when Andrea was singing to us, there's something about that imagery that just seems to resonate for us. That sense of care and provision and love and sense of belonging, that we are a part of this community of faith. There's a sense in which we have one who is looking out for us and on our behalf. And there's someone who we can hear calling us by name. They know us so well. And there's a sense in which even if one of us were lost, even if we went astray, got lost, that shepherd would come and find us. There's nowhere that we can go that's too far, and there's no place that we can get to that God won't find us and be ready to grab hold of us and love us once more. I was at the funeral of a colleague. I don't know, many of you who may have known a Reverend Mel Rose, longtime minister in Cambridge. Died suddenly this past week, and one of his sons was up speaking in the eulogy for his father, and he told the story of this one night when he and a buddy, I guess they got in some trouble. He'd attempted to steal a little roll of Starburst candies from the local store. I think every kid maybe has that kind of a story in their childhood, but lo and behold, the son said, I don't remember giving my name, but I must have given my address because the police officer drove me back to my home, and in the back of the cruiser, and of course he was still a young enough lad that he was absolutely petrified, and was brought to the front door and dashed in the house, and he said, I was so full of shame that I ran into my home and I ran into the basement and I went to the farthest, darkest corner of the crawl space that I could find. And he said, and when my mom of course called my dad and said what had happened, and he said, when he came home, my dad came and looked for me, and he found me in that back corner of the crawl space, and he said, he didn't yell at me, he didn't reprimand me. He crawled into that crawl space next to me, and he just put his arms around me, and he said, it's going to be all right. That's a good shepherd. That's a good fatherly care, protection, unconditional love that we all seek and that we all yearn for at different times in our lives, that we all rely on throughout our lives. Is it any wonder that at so many funerals, one of the favorite passages to be read is the 23rd Psalm? As a people of faith, we know in the deepest part of our hearts that we can't go too far astray, that even in our shame and our brokenness, our mistakes, that shepherd will crawl into that deepest dark place and find us and hold us and love us still. And that whenever there's a time when we feel lost or alone, that there's a voice that will call out to us by name. And when times are challenging, we know that we will be given what we need to survive. We will be given what is needed to sustain us. It's not always the big banquet, perhaps, that we're hoping for. There's a time and place for that. But we know that whatever it is that we need, we will be provided with that strength and that courage. And there will be that great celebration. Our cups will overflow. We are anointed. We are a part of this family of faith. We are the sheep of God's pasture. Brothers and sisters in Christ, the Good Shepherd. We need not ever be fearful, for we do not walk alone. Thanks be to God. Amen.